Hello, my name is Mark Taylor. Welcome to the Education on Fire podcast network. This show is sponsored by the National Association for Primary Education. Hello and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place where we share creative and inspiring learning in our schools. Season 5, Episode 73. Hello and welcome back to the Education on Fire podcast with me, Mark Taylor. Today I'm joined by Ben Landers, and he's from the PEspecialist.com and someone I know from an online community. And when I was putting together this PE season, I just thought this would be a perfect insight into what a membership site is all like, and actually having someone from America rather than just the UK and how they put their PE and Phys Ed stuff together. So Ben, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So can we start with a little bit of your background? How did you get into Phys Ed and that be part of your life? And then how did you then get into the online space of creating a membership site and supporting people online?
Yeah, sure. So I went to school originally as a business major. I've just always been interested in business, and I thought that would be a good fit. But then kind of once I got into the classes, I felt like it was a little bit just common knowledge. So I switched my major a few times and basically ended up on physical education just kind of as an afterthought, just because I was always into sports. I like being active. I always liked kids, but honestly never thought of myself as a teacher. But there wasn't, when I was looking at the options at the school that I was at, there wasn't a whole lot of other things that piqued my interest. And so I figured I would give it a shot. Once I got into it and really got into the schools and started teaching, I just fell in love with it. And stuck with it ever since. I started my website in 2014 just as a way to kind of share ideas, and I really didn't know in my early years teaching the online community of PE teachers that was out there. And so once I had started to get connected on social media and realized that there was a lot of really passionate teachers that were sharing awesome ideas, I kind of just wanted to jump in and be a part of it. And then, we were talking about Flip Lifestyle, which is the connection that we have. I heard them on a podcast and heard about, it's a history teacher and a librarian that had done something similar and started a website sharing ideas and selling resources and helping supporting other teachers. And I just figured, hey, give it a shot and see what happens. And so here we are.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you said about the social media aspect and that sort of big online community in social media. What do you find are the social media outlets that really work for education?
I think honestly any social media could work. For PE specifically, Twitter seems like the one that everybody is on, and that's what I originally got on. I was at a conference and I heard a keynote speech, and it was from a PE teacher I really respect. His name's Joey Fife. He's at the physicaleducator.com. He's a guy out of Canada. And he was talking about Twitter and how much of a difference it had made in his life. And I had always just seen Twitter as, I don't know, I didn't really think much about it. I was like, what's the big deal? Whatever, 140 characters. Yeah. Nobody cares about what you're eating for dinner, And then I started looking into like the different hashtags, like the Phys Ed, hashtag Phys Ed, and hashtag PE Geeks is another one. And then I started getting connected with people, and I realized what it really comes down to is the way I try to explain it to people that aren't on social media is if you could have a window into every other PE teacher's gym across the world and see what they're doing, you should take advantage of that. And that's really what Twitter turned into, is just all these people across the world were sharing ideas, and just so inspirational. It's such a great way to get feedback and to connect with people, especially as a PE teacher. A lot of times you're one of the only specialists in your school, so you don't really have that community to brainstorm and to get ideas from. So social media is a great way to support that.
And really understanding the hashtag idea, that really is a bit of a game changer. I remember from from all of my education sideboard generally from that, it was that kind of, as soon as you find the hashtag where you suddenly get all this information specifically about what you're interested in that particular moment, rather than just a continual news feed of, like you say, can be just random stuff depending on who you're following. That just suddenly gives you laser focus, and like you say, so many people share so much great content that way, and it really is just a way of having access to a whole world of knowledge that you wouldn't normally have.
Yeah, exactly. A big thing too is if you're trying to get on social media for professional development, just create an account separate from your personal account. That's only, like, I have a PE account, and the only people I follow are PE teachers. So the only thing in my feed is, physical education content, and that makes it a lot easier to find what you're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. The membership site, like you said, you started it because you came across Shane and Jocelyn, and the fact that they, from being in school, actually then created their businesses online and were able to share it with many, many more people. But what specifically are your aims with the PEspecialist.com? Is it just to share information, or was it just a way of connecting or building a community? What was your sort of main idea for it?
My main thing is I wanted to create a resource that I wish I had when I was starting out teaching, and that's just, I wanted, like, there's tons of content on the internet, but when I look around on the internet, I very rarely find very, very detailed lesson plans that are ready to go and that were kind of structured and created in a way that I thought was really motivating to kids and that was fun for kids and that was focused on specific outcomes. And you might find like one here or there, but what I really want to do is create an entire full curriculum year of support for teachers that they could sign up for, that I have forums where they can ask questions if they need to, any like visuals, posters with cues for specific skills, any station signs and things like that ready to print, just to save time, because as a teacher, there's so many things that I wanted to do and I just didn't have time for them. So having the membership site is a way to support teachers in a way that I wish I had been supported. It's kind of the resource that I had always looked for but never found, and also it's just a fun way for me to share things I'm learning and connect with other teachers, and hearing the feedback from people has been really, really inspiring and motivating, so I'm gonna hopefully keep it going.
That's great, and it really is about time, isn't it, for teachers who are obviously time poor, and also just knowing that not only have you got a whole load of content there, but when it's curated and it's organised in a way that people can really understand, it just takes the pressure away, and I guess that then just builds up that relationships, because then as you add more things, or you, like you say, the forums start to guide other people, you're just surrounded by a bunch of like-minded people who can then also give other advice as well. Yeah,
it's really cool seeing the community kind of form and build, and honestly, some of the ideas I've shared, other people have remixed them and shared them back, and then I've used their ideas because they made my ideas better. Another cool thing about the membership is, since it's a business, I'm actually able to do all the things that I wish I could have done when I was teaching. Like, I wanted to have all these illustrations of different skills and correct form for throwing and catching and all these other basic fundamentals. And like, as a teacher, you're not going to go spend $150 to hire an illustrator to design something for you. But because I'm running this business, I can now go find graphic designers and illustrators and take pictures of myself doing these skills and have them draw them out and then send these posters out to the membership. So I'm kind of creating all these things that I wanted to create, but I really couldn't justify it when I was just a teacher, So the membership is actually helping me become a better teacher as well, and have all these awesome resources that I always really thought would be cool, but I couldn't really justify spending the time and the money to create them.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. And so in terms of your sort of week or your term these days, is it mostly membership site work? Is it mostly teaching? Is it a real mix of the two? How does it sort of pan out for you?
Like my daily schedule?
Yeah.
So during the summer, obviously I'm off. I'm a full-time teacher, so 9 months out of the year I'm teaching, at least 40 hours a week. And then the way I've worked out our schedule, I have 2 young kids at home, and I don't want to just leave my wife hanging all the time.
Yeah.
And there's always an endless amount of work to do. So I've kind of set the boundaries of about 15 hours a week is like what I try to shoot for during the school year. And then during the summer, it's about 25 to 30. So I front load things and try to schedule out things in the summer for the upcoming school year. So during the school year, like when we go back to school, I'll be teaching from about 7 to 3, and then 2 days a week, as soon as I get off school, I'll go straight to the public library and just work for about 5 hours until they close. And then the other days, there's about an hour of work just responding and managing people that are working on the site, or responding to, visitors or my membership, and creating resources. And then, every now and then I'll be out of town for a conference or something like that, or I'll have to pull a late night on a Saturday, or, just depends on how many fires there are and where the attention needs to go.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Hopefully, 10 hours a week would be like, wow, everything's going really well. I can't believe this. 20 hours a week is like, all right, I need to tone things down and get things organized. So my sweet spot is in that 15-hour a week range during the school year.
Yeah, it sounds really good. And like I say, with children at home and time is precious, isn't it? So actually having that sweet spot of knowing exactly where your sort of professional life is, even when it's something you're really passionate about, and your home life, and being able to switch between the two is a really key thing. And I think everyone as teachers could really appreciate that, because it's very easy just to get into I've got to do this, I've got to do more. There's always someone else asking another question, and actually being able to put all those into separate boxes and make it fit the best you can is a real key lesson for everybody.
Yeah, you got to set those boundaries. It's important. I'm actually hoping to hire some support help this year to kind of help me have a little more time to create stuff, because that's what I really love to do. And what I've ended up doing is more management, which is not as much my sweet spot. So I'm hoping to find somebody to help me with that.
Yeah, great. Well, good luck with that. So in terms of actually phys ed in school and that kind of thing, what do you think are the sort of the good parts of it these days, or what are the things that you would actually change in terms of supporting the youngsters in schools just to have a sort of a healthy life, and also I guess a real good understanding of what PE and what that can bring to you?
Yeah, I think overall with phys ed in schools, it kind of depends on where you are. I think there's a lot of really, really quality, good programs, and there's some programs that are really bad, where a teacher's just going to throw a ball out to the kids and let them play the same game every day. And my perspective of what we should be trying to teach kids is, we're trying to teach them to have the confidence that they need, the skills that they need, and the knowledge that they need to pursue whatever kind of activity or sport or adventures they want in the future. Especially at the elementary level, we're trying to give them an overall picture where we can help them build those basic skills and build that confidence and have the basic knowledge to be active and pursue sports. And I think at the elementary level, you have a lot more teachers that are kind of hitting that goal of, we call it physical literacy. And then as you get up towards the secondary level, at least in the States, from what I've seen, you have a lot more schools that are hiring coaches over teachers. And then those coaches are just taking the PE jobs because since they're a coach, that's what they're, perceived to be good at. And they don't really care about teaching or know much about teaching. And so you have a lower quality of program. Not to say that there's not some amazing secondary programs out there, because there are. But from what I've seen, it's a lot harder to get that quality program going at the secondary level, because you have a lot more coaches and less people that are just passionate about instruction. I think one other thing is there's such a huge differentiation in the amount of resources that different schools have. I mean, we have some schools around us that have a big gym, they have tons of equipment, they might see their kids 3 times a week. And then we have other schools that might not have a gym, they have to teach in a classroom or a hallway, and they might have 3 basketballs, and they might only see their kids, 45 minutes once a week. And so trying to compare those two things is almost impossible, because they're just not equal, So I think if there was some way to, and this is across education, we have huge inequalities at every school. There's some way to provide everybody with the same class sizes, the same facilities, the same equipment and support, then I think you would see a lot more quality programs.
And that's what I really like about what you're doing with your membership site and people that are involved in this sort of new way of learning and sharing information. It's that, in an ideal world, we'd hope that, someone above us would just say, look, here's all the time you need, here's all the resources you need, and let's make sure that we're giving our children the best we can. But often it is left to the teachers individually about, what am I going to do and how am I going to do it? And I think, like you said, having the forum, having things within the membership which just enable you to find, like, well, this is where I am now. I've only got this amount of time, or I've only got these kind of resources available, but how can I make it the best I possibly can? And it's just sort of, I guess, lighting the fire and supporting those people who are just really interested in making the most of the situation they've got. And then I guess you can start putting in plans to improve all those things as you start to gain more experience and hopefully get more support from your school.
Yeah, for sure.
So in terms of how your sort of lesson plans, like you said, you sort of almost created a whole curriculum and that sort of thing. How does that sort of run, and how does that look like? Is it literally from when you start school going through all years, or does it go across different sports? And exactly what is involved within those sites for those lesson plans?
So the way I usually create lesson plans is by each unit. So like the unit of instruction, basically when you log into my membership, for all of my members, each resource is based on the subject that's being taught. So if they're looking for basketball or ball handling, there'll be like a 4-week unit plan that has examples of exactly what I'm doing for that 4 weeks. And there's also additional activities. And so that way they can plug that 4 weeks in wherever they want in their year, wherever it makes sense for them. And then they can take all the different unit plans and kind of use them like blocks of time and try to figure out where to fit them throughout the year. So that's kind of the way that I organize it.
That sounds great. And do you think there's a big difference probably between the US and the UK, and also for those listening around the world, or do you think sort of PE sort of has that universal language almost of it being a physical thing, and actually each of these units and each of these skills actually is very transferable?
I would hope that it would be universal, but I was talking to Ryan Sporting. He runs a podcast called the P.E Umbrella. He's in the UK.
Yeah. And
he was telling me that over in the UK, it's a lot more common for them not to have a specialized PE teacher, but instead a classroom teacher is in charge of PE.
That's right.
I don't know if that's the case, but if that is the case, then it seems very unlikely that you would have this universal philosophy, because a lot of the teachers that are teaching PE are not really specialized in it.
Yeah, that is often the case, and it is just a question of building up all of those skills and all of those things. And yeah, I've chatted to Ryan. He's actually going to be on this series of the podcast, which is fantastic.
Oh, nice.
So, and I just love the fact that there's this sort of community is, like I say, is as large and as wide as it is around the world, but it can also be quite small for those people who are just so keen to share all the great experience and stuff that they have, which is brilliant. So for those of us teaching in the UK specifically, what are some sort of good habits or structures for a lesson which anybody, no matter what their specialist or specialism, can actually do to really make a great PE lesson for their children?
Yeah, for me, I kind of divide my philosophy of a quality program into 3 categories. The first one is management. And so for me, management's huge. I have a lot of content on my website trying to help teachers figure out how to put the responsibility back on their students and kind of have that social responsibility where the kids take charge and ownership of their own learning. So, that's having routines and systems and clear expectations and consequences. And as much as possible, I think we need to give our kids responsibility for managing themselves.
And it does sound to me that it's that sort of idea of classroom management and children taking responsibility is great for learning generally as well as just for PE. So what are some sort of good habits and a good structure for a PE lesson that can really support children?
Yeah. So when I think about quality programs, I think about first you have management, and then you have instruction, and then assessment. It's kind of the last thing that you worry about. Although those 3 things are really all 3 important: management, instruction, and assessment. The first thing I think you should be focused on is having a good management routine, because if your kids are not listening to your instruction, it doesn't matter if your instruction is really good. And I feel like management and behavior and those kind of things is what really throws a lot of people off, especially when they're starting out. And so a lot of my content is focused on trying to help teachers find ways to develop clear expectations, to have good systems and routines in their classroom, so when their kids walk in, they know what to expect. And also to help kids take responsibility for their own learning and really take ownership of the part that they play in, the educational program that you're trying to roll out to them. One of the quotes that I always bring back and talk to my kids about is that quote that says, I can give you the keys to success, but you have to open the door yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, I'll like bring them in. I'm like, guys, it doesn't matter if you have a professional athlete come in here and show you the right way to do it, if you're not willing to take responsibility and listen to what they're saying and actually put it into action, then nothing's going to happen. So we talk about that a lot. A lot of the routines and systems and things I have try to put that responsibility back on the kids, management wise.
And in terms of time, I mean, I'm just sort of thinking here from my sort of musical experience, especially in terms of that management. I mean, certainly when I'm in a classroom, when everyone's got an instrument each, it can get very loud and very rowdy quite quickly. And you know, some of those good habits in terms of management are really, really key. But how do you find it in terms of a length of time? Because I think some teachers get slightly nervous and slightly concerned because they don't have that management off the bat. But I certainly find, you know, it's just being consistent sometimes, and just over a period of weeks and then over years, as you start to have the same children, maybe sort of over an amount of time, that these sort of great habits, which then actually appear within the school generally, can be really, really good. But it's just allowing that time for all these things to actually embed into what the children expect.
Yes, definitely. Change takes time. That's I'm actually writing a blog post right now that's titled "Change Takes Time," because what you just said, talking about vertical alignment, like when you're teaching for the very first year and you're developing that first relationship, it's going to take time. But then, as like for me, I've been teaching the same kids at my school the entire time they've been at the school. So I've been at the same school I'm going into my 12th year. And so for me, like when my older students come in, I can just ask them what the rules are and they can tell me, because we've had that relationship for 5 years and they know my expectations. Whereas when you're coming in for the first time, it takes time to build in that character and relationship with your students, for sure.
And I think that's where, like you said about the forums and Twitter and those sorts of resources are really good, isn't it? Because it just kind of gives you a little bit of confidence that it's not just me. If I need a bit of support, I know someone else say, I've been through that, but you could try this, or I did it like this, or it took me, I don't know, 6 months to get from A to B, you know, and you're thinking it should just take a couple of weeks. And I think just that understanding that everybody's in the same position and that, like I say, time, that sounds like a great blog post. I can't wait to read it. It's just really supportive for everyone. So as well as obviously your membership, and you talked about Twitter, are there any other sort of places or any other resources that would be a good place for the people listening to go and look at?
Honestly, I feel like if you can't find anything on social media, then just Googling what you're looking for. And with Google, the cool thing is the best resources usually rise to the top. So there's so many, with the internet now, there's just so many solutions to almost every issue. You can kind of find the ones that you resonate with and really dive deep with them. But social media for me is probably the easiest free resource. And then as you get connected on social media, you'll find the people that you resonate with. And most of the time, the people that are putting out a lot of content will also have paid resources that you can check out and dive a little bit deeper. So that'd be my recommendation.
Yeah, sounds good. And I think it really is that kind of, you know, just go with the flow. You know, like you say, you'll resonate with somebody and then you sort of start to follow their lead and investigate a little bit more about what they're producing, and you find the people that you want to connect with and the sorts of resources they have available, which I think is absolutely key. In terms of resources, but also more specifically funding related to those resources. We talked a little bit before about the fact that, you know, some schools will have a massive gym or more than one gym and loads of resources, and other schools will obviously have less resources. If you had any sort of experience in terms of how, if you want more resources or you want to up the facilities that you have, any funding places that you can go to specifically, or anything within the school that you've managed to sort of convince someone to maybe divert a bit of funding towards the PE as opposed to going to somewhere else?
Right. Yeah, I think a big part of that is just advocacy. You know, if you're, and social media for me plays a big part of that, because I can easily go to my parents and say, hey, check out my Twitter feed and look at the quality of the program that I'm offering your students. And then I can say, can we put the fundraiser funds towards getting a rock wall in the gym this year? And if you have a very clear way to show what you're doing and the quality of the program that you're trying to give to the students, I think that goes a long way in getting support from your administration, getting support from your parents. For me, a lot of the things I've gotten have been through submitting proposals to my administration and explaining why that was going to have a positive impact on students, and why, you know, a positive PE program also promotes a positive academic program, in the school as well. And so if they want to up test scores, then we need to make sure we're providing quality PE to our students. There's tons of data and research to back that up. There's also always a ton of grants that are available, and that's just going to depend on where you are and what you qualify for. But I've gotten plenty of grants. One good one in the States, I don't know if they do it in the UK, is Donors Choose. Do you know?
I haven't come across that. No, I'll look into that.
Okay, Donors Choose is basically you put you submit an application for something that you want, and then random people will donate money to it. And then when it gets funded, you take pictures of the students, and the students write thank you notes back to the people that donated it. So it's a cool way to have a little personal touch for donors as they're donating money, because they get to see it actually having an impact with the students. And then also you can go to businesses. For me specifically, we've gotten free golf clubs from the local golf club organizations, free tennis stuff. So, or even, going to a bank and saying, hey guys, would you sponsor us getting this equipment? And we'll put a little plaque on the wall, things like that. There's plenty of businesses that have a huge marketing budget, and they would love to have some good press and some good social media from donating something to a school. So I think if teachers are willing to put in the effort, there's plenty of ways that they can get what they need.
I really like that, and I think it is that it's you as the teacher actually deciding what it is that you'd like or how you'd like to improve your facilities, and actually finding your way about how you go about that. And all those ideas are fantastic. It just really just means that you're in the driving seat, really. You can feel like you're pushing your department on. You can get more things, and like you said, now with social media, and the communication with parents is really important. It's not like your kid goes to school and then you pick them up at the end of school and then you have parents evening like once a year or something to find out what's been going on. It is really just like a daily or weekly communication, like say through Twitter or social media. I know certainly my kids' schools have got weekly blogs about what's going on and stuff that they're trying to fundraise for, and also explaining things that have already been funded and how they've been about that. And I think that more open dialogue and a real sort of insight into what the school's going on, as you say, then everyone gets on the same page and everyone starts supporting in a more cohesive way, really.
Yeah, for sure. I love how schools are jumping on the social media bandwagon, because it's just such a no-brainer. Because if you're having good things going on at the school, you need to be blasting that out to parents. It's only going to be good for your school, for your community, for your neighborhood. So I think schools that have started to adopt that are doing the right thing for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really key area as schools, like I say, want to make a big impact and also keep that dialogue going with everybody. It's brilliant. Fantastic. Well, Ben, thanks so much for chatting to me. Can you just give us all your contact details of the membership site and how they can get in contact with you on social media as well, so people who want to find out more and actually check out some of your resources and the best way of getting in contact with them? Sure
thing. Thanks for having me. It's been a blast talking to you, Mark. You can contact me by jumping on my website at thepespecialist.com, and then all of my social media there. You'll be able to see links, but it's at the PE Specialist for pretty much any social media that you like to use: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And I have a free ebook at thepespecialist.com/free if you're looking for some fun games or activities to try out. There's some of my favorite ones for that resource. So feel free to hit me up, and I appreciate you having me, man.
Oh, thanks so much, and that's great. And as with so many of the guests that come on this podcast, just make use of the people. They're usually so willing just to make contact and get some feedback from either from what you've heard and actually sharing those resources, which is the reason we're all in this, just so that as a teacher you get the opportunity to make the most of what's available out there. So Ben, thanks very much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for your time, and we'll speak to you all later.
Thanks for having me.
A big thank you to Ben for being such a great guest on today's show, and I hope you enjoyed the little bird accompaniment in the background. Ben very kindly got up early and did his recording from just outside his house in the garden, and I really appreciate him making the effort to give us the opportunity to have a great recording and a great conversation together. This podcast is part of the Education on Fire podcast network and is sponsored by the National Association for Primary Education, and they bring together everyone who has a concern for the learning of children from birth to 13. To find out more information about them and the great work they do, please go to educationonfire.com/NAPE. Thanks for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information of each episode and to get in touch, go to educationonfire.com. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.